Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 work session. If we can begin with the pledge. Will, would you like to lead us on the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just want to let you know that Vince is going to be a few minutes late joining us, and Marla is in the process of logging on via the, whatever that's called, the cloud. I'd like to just take a minute and mention that Marla is joining us in a work session virtually. The work session that was originally scheduled for last week, she was planning on being here in person, and when she found out that she was traveling when we moved it because of the storm, she was just a little disappointed she couldn't be here in person, so I just want to point out that she has made every effort to be here on the online, and I appreciate that for it. Again, I appreciate everyone's effort, and when she joins us and Vince joins us, they will just start participating. Thank you, everybody. We'll do roll call. I will start with Mr. Maloney.
Present.
Sarah?
Here.
Maureen?
Present.
Laura?
Here.
Ed? Here? Superintendent?
Here.
Excellent. And I will begin with new business. May I have a motion on new business, which is items 2A and 2B?
I'll make a motion to pass 2A and 2B.
Lorraine?
I'll second.
Laura, second. Any discussion on either? No? Good to go? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay, it passes 5-0. Again, 2 members not present. Did I skip you? I'm skipping, right?
You're good.
Discussion topics, board meeting dates. Is there, I know Vince was a part of this and Marla. Is there anything, I don't want to use the words not important, but is there anything we need to discuss that they can join in? I hate to.
If you'd like to change the order of some of our agenda items, we could certainly do so if you're waiting for Marla and Vince to join us.
Yeah, I mean, the first few are definitely things that they've discussed with me, and I'm sure they've discussed with other board members. I don't want to derail the meeting, but and I know they can go back and watch. So is there anything that's more of a discussion that we've worked on?
I think the board meeting dates, though, the conversation leading up to let's have established board meeting dates is something that, obviously Vince has advocated for in the past, so he'll be happy to see that.
Yes.
We're not voting on the dates yet. We're just discussing that this will allow other groups to schedule around Board of Education meetings, making it possible for West Seneca residents and employees to attend our meetings more easily because there won't be as many conflicts.
Sure, and I love it and I'm in support of it. I know Marla reached out to me with just a couple concerns.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can tell you what her concerns were. Obviously, should I get this right? Her concerns were, she likes the idea of setting the meeting.
There she is.
Perfect timing. Marla? Hi.
Hi, sorry. It was an internet issue. I'm good now.
That's okay. What's the phrase? We can put a man on the moon?
Exactly.
We were just moving on to topic 3A, discussion on board meeting dates, and I was about to speak for you with questions or concerns you had. We're kind of looking to set I don't know, my opinion, and I think the opinion of several people, is kind of set the dates, not in stone, but put together a plan that's continuous throughout the years, like everyone knows these are the dates. And then if we have to change them for any reasons, the board obviously always has that authority. And I know that you and I had started a discussion that we were going to continue tonight. So did you want to speak now?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, thanks. No, I think that makes sense, and I appreciate what the goals that we're trying to achieve by doing this include. I think I would just question whether that's in line with our policy, because I think at our last policy meeting, when I was reading through it, I think it said that we needed to approve it at our annual reorg meeting. So I would just double check that. And then, as somebody who joined the board with the schedule that was preset, there were challenges in making that work with my schedule, hence being virtual a couple of times. So I would just, I think it's good to make sure that the future board members, to the extent there are any future board members, understand what the commitment is and what they can pencil in the dates. But there may be conflicts, just given we don't know what our board will look like next year. So.
Yeah, so my counter to that, and anyone can jump in at any time, was we're putting together now, which I think helps people who run for the school board, because I've been part of several conversations where board members have been sworn in, and then they're not available for like anything. And it's like, did you know we meet then? No, I had no idea. So I think it's kind of nice, like Nicole can put it right in the packet that they get when they're looking to run or when they turn in their signatures, that sort of thing, just to kind of give them a farther heads up. And I definitely would think we should look at the policy, but I also think we can still approve them at that meeting, like do a final approval. But if we kind of put together the grid work now, there's a lot less stress. Because the
I agree
thing
with that.
I think screws us up the most is that July meeting, and we're changing dates. Like, again, you've already, like in July, you got elected, and now you're planning your schedule, and then that meeting, we start changing stuff. And I think that actually came to fruition a couple times where a board member set their schedule after they were elected, and then that meeting, things got changed big time. So I think we still can approve it as a final at that meeting, but
We
we
do.
put together a good work.
She's right. The policy is we officially have to approve it at that first reorg meeting. However, it doesn't prevent us from having a very concrete draft going into that, so.
And
I think that's prudent.
I think by having the concrete draft that I can publish for our music department, our athletic department, will allow us to plan events around it. And certainly, we know a date might change when we come together at the organizational meeting in July, when we have new board members on. But know that if we should change a date, there could be conflicts within our schools. But I think this provides adequate and ample time for whether it's our PTA, it's our administrative units, our athletics, all of those groups, to try to work around our board meeting dates and really treat those as blackout dates, if you will, to avoid those when scheduling, because they do start planning events in the very near future for the upcoming school year.
Anyone, and I think that would go to what Vince has always wanted, was, priority on board meeting nights of not having a lot of, I know sports, and I know certain things have to happen sometimes, so I think he's a positive on that, if anyone disagrees with that. Anyone got any other comments? When would we vote on this if we decide to kind of go with the plan?
It would be typically at the organizational meeting in July.
Oh, no, I mean, when would we just say we're cool with the dates you've got, like, we're cool with this, like the draft? Are we looking to say it's good for tonight,
I don't
or?
think we make an official.
Oh, so
vote
there's no official at all?
until that meeting, but
Okay, so this is just a draft that we're going to work off of, okay?
If you see any conflicts or know of any conflicts now or in the next few weeks, we can certainly make revisions to this, but I will share this with our administrative team and with our leaders of the music department and ask that they plan events around these drafted dates.
I will say the one that we've kind of looked at the last 2 years, that November 4th will be election day, and we've talked about not having it the same night as a board meeting, the same night as election, so that people have the opportunity to get out and vote.
Yeah, I do
Okay,
agree with
that's
that.
important.
November
Okay.
4th would be one that we want to not have. And I'm assuming these include all of the mandatory BOCES type dates, even though we don't know them all the time, right? Or is it set in stone every year?
We don't have the voting feedback.
Okay. Okay. We can, again, we can figure that out as it comes, but I love everything else about it. Thank you, I never would have thought.
So we'll look to make a change then from the November 4th, which is Election Day, potentially to move that back a week to November 11th.
Holiday, are you okay with that?
Is that Veterans Day? Okay, we'll try that again.
Can you remind me what the board meeting schedule is in October? The first one in October. It's a Tuesday, right? not a Wednesday.
Yeah, we have October 1st as a meeting and the 14th is a work session.
Oh, it is a
Would it be
Wednesday.
the
she's right.
15th? Yeah.
Okay, it's October 1st, you said?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one thing, there's a high Jewish holiday, called Yom Kippur, that's on the 1st. That's the only date I would ask that we move.
Oh, can I ask what one?
That can certainly be moved because October 1st is a Wednesday, and so I don't think that's accurate.
Thank you.
Should we do September 30th, since it's that close to October, or?
That would be free in September, though.
Well, I mean, by one day, though.
But
We'll do the 7th and 21st.
I like that suggestion.
7 and 21st.
And it's not a holiday, nothing weird. I know we're getting a lot of extra holidays and stuff. Did you hear that, Marla? 7th and 21st? For November, so October, I'm sorry.
October 7th and October 21st.
Yep.
Is that cool?
Thank you.
Vince, if you want to get caught up, we're going over the calendar. We all kind of agree to get something set in unofficial stone. I believe that helps support your goal. And
Yeah, it's a very wise decision. I'm glad we're doing it.
appreciate all the work you've done bringing it up over the years.
So do you want to look at that November date then, since we're on it?
I think what we did this year was just have the one
meeting in
meeting
November, yeah.
in November because the two holidays.
Oh, yeah.
What was the month though that we wish we had two?
Maybe we should
Wasn't it
do that.
November that we wish that we had two?
When's Thanksgiving? The 27th.
Or at least one on, I think we said we wanted one on the calendar that we could decline
cancel.
rather than trying to add. If that, I believe that's what it was.
I mean, do we want to do the 11th and 18th?
11th is Veterans Day.
Oh, that's the,
Yeah. I mean, we could do 18th and 25th, and then if we can back off to the 25th, that will be lovely for everyone.
yeah, it'll be an
Okay.
emergency, yeah. If we need it, great. If not,
So the 25th would be the work session,
Yes.
yeah.
the 18th.
Sorry, was that for November?
Yes, 18th and 25th.
Thank you.
And the only other thing that we may need to give consideration to is the June meeting dates. So right now, June 9th is slated to be a meeting. June 23rd is a work session. I don't know if our principals have selected the high school graduation dates, but June 23rd could potentially be a graduation date.
They're tentatively on the calendar.
For
Not sure.
26th?
For
Oh, for
26.
I'm sorry.
They're on the
For
calendar
26.
for this
You're
year.
correct, you're correct.
I think it is usually Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, and, I mean, who knows if I'm here now, but my daughter will be graduating that year, hopefully, so let's not do a board meeting on that night.
Oh, definitely.
If I'm here. If I'm not here, who cares? Do whatever you want.
Of 26, right. So we could look at June 9th and then potentially June 16th as a work session if needed.
Yeah, because when was it that we did the board retreat with the new board members? Was it June?
July.
It was,
So that might be a
We did a
nice,
preview one this morning.
Oh, yeah.
nice time to make it one that night or
Sure.
something. Okay, cool. Do we want to discuss anything else with the board meeting dates? Anyone?
I feel better about this.
Good?
Yeah, I do.
Everything good with that? Just checking.
Good, thank you.
conversations about things too. Maybe graduation.
She taking Starbucks orders or?
And
All right.
I just want to confirm though that December, we didn't want a second date just in case.
No.
I think it's too.
No,
No, I agree, just in case, you never
You
know.
know how much I love meetings? I'm not, we're good.
It's easier to cancel one than to get one on the schedule. I'm only asking
Yeah.
if you
That's
want.
pretty easy to get
Okay,
on
think
schedule,
I
it'll be all right.
I mean, again, I might not be here, so we'll figure it out.
Before you were on the board, we added, 9 meetings in a short period of time and made it work, so.
Yeah. Then we have to have
We can
like
always figure it out if we need to.
entire weeks for interviews. Cool. Okay, so no vote on that. We're just going to unofficially mark it in stone. And I love it. Again, thank you
Of course.
for doing this. Thank you for pushing for it, Finn. 3B, calendar dates. Lisa.
Thank you. So in your packet, and excuse me, I sound a lot worse than I feel. You can blame, I guess, the Bills game on Sunday. So in your packet is the Western JMT Regional School Calendar. JMT stands for the Joint Management Team. This is basically all of our BOCES in the region. So Niagara Orleans BOCES, Erie 1 BOCES, Erie 2 BOCES come together to develop a regional calendar for Western New York. The mindset behind this is because some of our students, although we're situated in Erie 1 BOCES, we do have students that attend programming in Erie 2 BOCES. And so there was an effort years ago to try to have aligned calendars so that all BOCES had similar or the same start dates, superintendent's conference days, so that we had the least disruption possible to student calendars. So what you have before you is not the draft West Seneca calendar, but rather the BOCES calendar. They will be voting on this in the next week or two, and so then we'll be able to better build our calendar from that. We do have a calendar meeting scheduled locally for our school district, but this gives you a sense as to what breaks are being slated for Erie 1 BOCES for next school year, what's been drafted. Erie 1 BOCES Board of Ed has not yet adopted this, but I wanted you to have eyes on it first in case there was any feedback from the board, that I can take that to our upcoming calendar meeting. Dr. Logren will be facilitating that calendar meeting, and certainly wanted the opportunity if there was any feedback from the board before we have that calendar meeting. And then when our calendar is drafted, we'll bring it forward to the board for your review and ultimately for the board's adoption.
I know the kids are off tomorrow for Lunar New Year. Is that not on there? Do they not do that? Or?
So the Lunar New Year is celebrated when it falls on a day Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And so you'll see last school year, for example, the Chinese Lunar New Year fell on a Saturday. I believe it was 2 years prior, Juneteenth fell on a Saturday. And so it's only recognized in our school calendar if it falls on a weekday
Okay, so it's
or a
not
school
bumped to
day.
a Monday or Friday then?
Right.
Okay, great. Okay.
I guess my only question is, and you said that this isn't ours, so we may have some different dates. I was kind of excited to see where Labor Day falls, which means that technically school would start a week earlier based on this. However, they put it 2 weeks, or not they, it's how it works for December, but yet still potentially going to the end of June. So with that week ahead, I would think that they'd get out a little earlier, but that's for West Seneca to decide what we would be doing.
Correct.
Contracts too.
So teachers' contracts vary district to district. We can bring teachers in prior to September 1 with agreement by our teachers' union. So I have previewed this calendar with the president and vice president of WISTA so that they can get feedback from their membership about coming in those 2 days in late August prior to September 1. If that should happen, it does give us some flexibility within the school year, additional snow days built in if we need snow retrieval days. But really, the end of the school year is, our school years usually bookend by Labor Day and then the Regents exam schedule. So we're really kind of determined when our school year ends based on the Regents exam schedule.
This is not far off. I mean, we're typically, historically, it's always been between the 21st and the 26th anyway, so.
And built in there, they're citing it's 2 full weeks for the December break, and so that obviously has 2 days of the year as well.
No, it's just hard for someone not from New York State to look at that. That's the hot time, and that's another topic of, the temperatures are rising, so that's just always hard for me to look.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that's beyond us. I'm just asking. It's
Just
beyond
be off
us.
on my
No. And you know what, it's an issue larger than
Than
this
this
joint
is,
management team
exactly.
here. It's a state issue, and that's where I wonder, because we know that there are changes happening with Regents exams and accreditation for, so is there any conversation about moving those Regents exams? Because as you explained, we're locked in. So because we're locked in, you can't be creative, you can't make intelligent decisions that would end the school year earlier. Like if I had my way, I would get rid of February break. It's not great for kids. Any kids that are playing in winter sport, you have February break, you're not off because you have to practice. If you're a teacher, you're not off because you're coaching. right? Or if you're a coach, you're not off. So that February break is not really conducive to solid learning. We just came off all these days off, and then we're going to go on February break. And then you're going to have a haul to the end. So I guess my question is not so much for the calendar. I was surprised. I thought that BOCES was talking about doing away with the February break.
Yes, I did too.
So there has been discussion. I think this is one of the best calendars that you'll see in upcoming years, in that we don't have to account for some additional and newer holidays within the calendar. But if we get, and we're starting the earliest possible, Labor Day being September 1. So we're starting school potentially September 2nd. You really can't start earlier than that based on most contractual language. But if you have a Labor Day that's later than what this calendar is, and you also have to account for Juneteenth in Chinese Lunar New Year, and some of the newer holidays we've had to respond to, I think we will see that inevitably we have to look at reducing breaks in order to accommodate some of the holidays that we're now required to schedule.
I just, what you brought to light there too, Lorraine, is that hanging on, I see there are two high school principals here, and as a former high school principal, trying to hang on to those seniors so that they don't implode in the last couple of weeks, because they may not have exams. Very few have actual exams that they have to pass. We have to have them in school. We can't have them have any stumbles toward the finish line. It just would make a lot of sense to end the year went earlier. So
I should mention, I think my kids should go year-round.
That's a separate conversation.
I'm just kidding.
That's a whole separate conversation.
The one thing I want to point out is I don't ever, and I love my kids going to school, but actually I hate holidays at all. But the December break this year, I think was horrible as far as those 2 days. It's just, I don't know that my kids accomplished anything. Like, it just seems weird. Can we even try to get similar to this for December? Like, I mean, I hate to say I don't want my kids in school, but I don't think those 2 days were super productive anyway, and it was just such a punch in the face.
I think having the 2 weeks at that Christmas break, as we're seeing in this draft calendar, would certainly be feasible if we can actually start school on Tuesday, September 2nd, which means that we would need to have the 2 days in late August, whether it's the 26th and 27th or 27th and 28th, superintendent's conference days. If we cannot do that, then our first student day would be Thursday, September 4th, and it would be nearly impossible to have enough snow days built in and flexibility in the calendar to have a full February break and 2 weeks between December and January.
Okay. If I had to pick, I would pick the December one. I'm just one
It's
person.
wonky, I mean, because when you try to have them go 22nd, 23rd, it was tough for some families who have to try to reserve things like that, so.
Okay. Cool. Any other?
How many snow days do we plan on building into our calendar in the future?
So the advice that we're given is to take the average of the last 5 years of snow days that you've utilized and try to build that into your calendar. So generally speaking, we're looking at 4 days, 5 days max. You'll see in our calendar this year, there were 3 days built in, and then 3 additional snow retrieval days as a plan, if needed, where we would pull back days from the February break or the April break, which often schools do, and they'll put it on their calendar. Sometimes it's the Friday before Memorial Day, but they let it be known up front that we've built in 3 days. If we go beyond that, here's our plan of how we're going to recoup days.
On that note, when it's our average, is that the average counting if there wasn't a state emergency? Because I feel like the past 2 years we've had state emergencies, and I don't know that we can always depend on that. So when you say we've averaged 3 or 4 days, really it's another 5 days, right?
So The guidance doesn't get into that level of specificity of state of emergencies or not, but you're absolutely right. Last year and this year in particular, the governor declaring a state of emergency means that those days do not count against us in the same way for the counting for 180 days of student attendance.
Yeah, so I think it would probably just be prudent for us to kind of consider that with those weeks, just in case it was just Erie County and not all of the state.
Right.
Yeah,
You know what
I think she did say emergency for the area, not the whole state.
Yeah, no, you're right, but I'm just, what if she didn't?
Well, right, yeah, no, I agree.
Or whoever.
Yeah. Cool. We just build a dome over West Seneca. Do we need to officially do anything at this point, or?
No, this was just a discussion item. Next, we'll be bringing you the draft West Seneca student calendar for the upcoming school year, and that will be what you actually adopt, and that will take place after our calendar meeting. Just looking for some initial feedback at this point.
The initial calendar meeting, have you discussed your thoughts on half, I know you've brought it up lots of times, but the half-day thing, are we even concerned about that at this point, or is that a future thing where half-days kind of stink also?
So half-days are typically mapped out in that calendar, so if there's any feedback regarding half-days, I would welcome that feedback going into that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, when is that meeting?
January 30th, if I'm not mistaken. I think
that
it's
would be something
Thursday
that-
afternoon.
If we could get the data on absenteeism, on the half days before a break. Don't look at me like that, Ed.
I would just do all half-days.
Well, yes, but specifically at one of the conferences, they were talking about the significant drops on the half days before a break.
We don't have a whole lot that happens before a break. I think what we talked about in the past is that, especially in elementary school, there's many half days that take place throughout the school year. And, the parent, it's another child care concern that we have to work out. And then, in addition to that, are the teachers able to utilize that time in the best way? It just creates a lot of questions for us.
But if we have, let's say, 4 half-days, we can't make them 2 days because it doesn't count the same way, right? That's the whole concept?
Correct. We can have up to 4 full days as superintendent's conference days a year. You can have up to 4, they call them shortened session days, 4 in each semester, so 4 in the fall semester, 4 in the spring semester. So you can have up to an additional 8 half-days with kind of this asterisk requirement that we still have to meet the minimum number of instructional hours per calendar year, which is 900 hours at the elementary level, 990 hours at the secondary level. So as long as we meet those requirements, we are on solid ground for state aid purposes. In this year's calendar, for example, for elementary students, we have 7 half-days.
And I know the middle school last week, I don't know what days were the snow days, but I think Monday was a holiday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday was a snow day.
Correct.
And Thursday, I think, was a full day of school, and Friday was a half day. And again, I don't know how much productive the kids are on the half days, but if our attendance is poor on those days, they're not learning anyway, but it still counts for us, even if a whole bunch of kids don't show up.
That's right.
Okay.
As
So
long
it's-
as school's in
yeah.
session, right? And I think you're posing a question of what counts for state aid reimbursement purposes versus if it's truly a meaningful, high-quality instructional day.
Because I was surprised, my kids go through their whole schedule on a half day. I just can't
Shortened
imagine
periods.
that, what's going on. I know.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one more thing before, on the full calendar. And at the risk of excommunication from the church, I think we should stop following the Easter calendar. And I think we should set a spring break that's consistent and in a good place for schools. Because this Good Friday this year is very late, April 18th. Next year it's April 3rd. It's been times where it's in March, and it's all over the place. And how do you plan for a good school calendar when you have that variable? So I think it's worth having a conversation with at the BOCES level or even at the local level. So that we're consistent, we know where our spring break falls, and it falls at a place that is good for students and good for school.
I think that's a really valid point for advocacy with our BOCES and the regional BOCES. The risk, if we were to break from that now, is that any of our students that participate in a BOCES program or they go for the half-day CTE, our break not aligning with their break would mean that they would have twice as much disruption in their schedule. So it makes a lot of sense to follow the BOCES calendar, even though your points are really valid.
Yeah, I understand that. And I guess that's where the advocacy would lie, in looking at other parts of the country that do that, follow that. In the Northeast, not just a southern calendar. I think it makes things, I think we should plan calendars that work well in educational terms. And that's my stance on that.
I just wanted to add for clarification, Ed, my question about absenteeism on those half days is for the chronic absenteeism, for those students that are missing a lot of days. That's just kind of like an extra day that they're not going to.
I agree with you on that, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was my rationale
Yeah.
of why I'm curious what our numbers are.
Yeah, and that was my point too. Like, the kids aren't coming because why bother, you know what I mean, like half day. But unfortunately, we still get the credit for it, so I don't know, like the statewide, I don't know if
It's
the,
about the students, Ed.
that's what I'm saying, it's
Right.
the students aren't really learning, but we can't say, okay, we're going to give them the whole day off because then we don't get credit. So,
And as the board knows, we were really closely monitoring both staff and student attendance on January 2nd and January 3rd because we were concerned of what the attendance rates would be. If you're curious about the data and attendance rates on half-days, that's something that I can get to the board. I can include that in a weekly update if you'd like, and we can discuss it further here in public if you so choose. But it sounds like there's a curiosity around, is attendance drastically different on a half-day?
Just if there's a pattern, if there's something we can do to, whether it's going to help the staff, because if we don't have staff and can't get subs, that's not good for the students. Or if there's a bunch of students missing that day, then that doesn't make sense either, so.
good.
Well, I don't think a half day would affect the staff as much because they're still working a full day.
Well,
right? They're
yeah,
not-
but also, how'd you like to teach the first half of the day and then have to go into meetings? And I'm just, that whole shifting gears thing.
Well, it's an economy of time. You have to get work done. There are things that you have to get done. You have to make those decisions. It's
Yeah.
never going to be perfect.
No, I just would like, hopefully we're working towards not doing anything half days. if there's any way around it. That's all, just bringing it up. Anything else anyone want to discuss on that before we move on to C? How about C?
Okay, so ex officio student board members, I'd like to invite Mr. Brinker from West Senior High School and Mr. Winnicky from East Senior High School to join us for the discussion. They're welcome to have a seat at the table. We even have name tags for you, gentlemen. As the board knows, a little bit of background, by September 1 of 2025, we are required to have student ex officio board members at our board table to participate in board discussion. So just to recap what that looks like, as student board members, they're intended to have a voice and to represent the student body and weigh in on matters, sharing their insights and their opinion. However, there's things that they are not privileged to. For example, student ex officio board members would not enter into executive session with us, and they would only be privy to the same information that the general public has access to. So they would not have access to personnel records, for example. They are not a voting member of our school board, but they can and should participate in discussions. So this is a requirement that is effective September 1, as I mentioned, and we will adopt a policy related to the student ex officio board members. What we should have a discussion around is how we go about selecting or choosing the students that represent their high schools. We can have more than one student, and so given our size of our school district, it may make sense to have one student from West Senior, one student from East Senior, but how the student is selected is what I'd love for us to have a discussion on. There's really three common ways in which school districts have a student ex officio board member. One is by popular vote of the student body. So when we hold our student council elections or class officer elections, this would be an additional position that someone could run for and would be elected by popular vote of the student body. A similar but slightly different way is that you get this position by default. So for example, you are the senior class president and also the representative at the board table representing the student body as the ex officio student board member. Again, that pathway would be by election, but rather than it being a standalone position, it's incorporated into our one existing officer positions. And the third common pathway that schools take is that this is something separate from student elections, and we post, if you will, or advertise the opportunity for students to have a leadership role, being a student ex officio board member. Those students that are interested express their interest through an application process. Some schools have students submit an essay, for example, up to 500 words or whatever criteria we establish as to why you want to serve as a student ex officio board members. Some schools handle that as it's application and paper review only. You can also set it up where the board president, high school principals, or the board president and the superintendent with high school principals interview the student candidates that are interested. So there can be an interview process as well. So those are really the common pathways that schools have selected their ex officio student board member. It's a local decision that we make here. Then we'd archive that in our policy, and ultimately the board would adopt that policy. So I'd like to just, with that background, invite you to have a conversation regarding it.
You look like you're in trouble or something. You guys are sitting there.
No, they're uncomfortable.
I guess my first question is it a senior or is it any kid?
So it has to be a junior or senior, and has to be a student who's been a member of our school community for a minimum of 3 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
So not someone, let's say, who moves into our school community their junior year.
Okay.
I would be for like an application and maybe not so much an interview process if, unless we decide that, but something where they do sit down either with somebody from the board or one of the principals, just because we're here so often. I would want them to understand, the commitment if they really are interested. Like it's twice a month, it's in several hours, most often. So I would want them to know rather than to come to the first meeting and be like, oh yeah, I'm done, I'm not going anymore. So I would want to make sure they were aware of the potential commitment.
Maybe like a couple board members and a principal or something like that. I mean, I like that idea. I don't know how they would apply, like, will we whittle it down if they put it in, or do they?
The process that we go through now, we don't have that traditional, our school government isn't president, we don't do those anymore. We basically have a council and we have multiple students within that council making decisions. So it's not your typical, I want to be the president, the vice president, which I think encourages a lot of collaboration and interest. So what we typically do is ask counselors, who's interested in the board rep right now? And the counselors give us a bunch of names. I reach out to a bunch of students, we kind of whittle it down. That's how you get your 2 reps from West Senior. This isn't too far away from what you're asking for or what we have to do. I like this. I'm not a fan of the voting. We do that at proms, and they can get goofy and, but if we do something serious, we cast a net and we have kids that really want, and Paula Alchap from West Seneca is a pretty good rep of and Jacob Knox, those are your 2 reps. If those 2 kids want to be leaders, they want to be participating in this. That's what we want.
Do you think it'd be worthwhile for, after the counselors get that group of kids, for you guys to see who would be interested and then doing like a presentation so they knew what the commitment was?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important that they understand this level of commitment, because we've had, student reps in the past where, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was going to be twice a month, this many hours, I've got to work. And just like you were talking about setting the board meetings so that candidates know what they're getting into, same thing for the ex officio student members would be important.
Right. And generally, we pick students that are really engaged, so does Paula go to that bowling, or is she here, is she, and that's gonna be a problem, because these
Right.
students generally are hounds, they are involved in a ton of things, field hockey.
So,
Unified.
are we saying we want it open to just the council, or do we want to open up to any junior, senior? They'd have to be nominated or something, or, like, what if you're not on the council and you want to be it?
Paul and Jake are now on the council.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, okay.
so I would
Got
open
it,
it up to
okay.
any junior, senior that would want to come in.
Yeah, it would be,
Here.
and it may open it to a student that's not involved with that. They just, you know what, this is interesting. I'm interested in local policy making and so on. Like,
Right.
Richie. who's been
Richie
at my
Shack, I was just
building,
gonna say,
right?
Richard Shack
I
is
mean, he's
all
just-
over the
he's
news
got
right
a-
now.
He's got a commitment, he wants to be involved, and maybe this
things
isn't our three-sport athlete who's also in the play, because they're committed to a lot of things, so I think that would be a great way to
Yeah,
go about
I
it.
think in the past, some of our student reps weren't typically able to make it because
Right.
they had,
Right.
again, maybe less of that every schedule on board meetings, schedule, but.
I guess that would be my next question too, is when you get the individual from the school, is it possible to have like an alternate? Or is it just set that it has to be one, just in case you do have somebody that's heavily involved in sports or musical, and they can't make it? Can
No,
you
yeah,
have an
that's,
alternate?
we need to, because when Paul's down here, Jake, and that's kind of the selling point of, look at, I know you're busy.
It's mandatory one, but I think we could have, I think we could do 40 if we wanted to.
I think what a good structure might be is having a senior and a junior alternate, and that way you have a junior behind them learning the ropes from each school.
That's what we were just talking about.
That's the ideal.
I don't want one and one. We need two,
Yeah.
and then have that rotating.
Yeah. And then, if it's a tie, I think if you make them watch a board meeting, and whoever is awake at the end
Can we pick them?
automatically gets it.
Who
I
doesn't
mean,
make faces while...
That's an endurance task that,
That could be part
There's
of the
something to be
rubric.
said about actually having them come at the time of the meeting, because I think you have a different appreciation for what that looks like at 6 or 7 PM than you do at, 9
Right.
o'clock in the morning at school.
But the kids we ask, when they come back, I mean, they're blown away with being part of
Right.
this. The reps are so excited to come here. I talked to them the next day, and the fact that you're listening to them and you're talking to them, they're very proud of this. So if we have two students and they, alternate, they're gonna be,
There was a couple of years ago, I'm not sure when it was, Sansbury was a rep at
Yep.
one point, and we were having a whole conversation, and she was involved in it.
Yeah.
I completely forgot she wasn't a board member at one point. She was so engaged.
and she was a junior, so we had her for 2 years.
Yeah, it was
That
great. But she also had a lot of other stuff going on.
Right.
But the people that have been here have been really engaged, so I think this is gonna be great.
This is
I like this.
great.
We gotta come up with any other decisions, or?
So based on the feedback that I heard, there would be an application process. Ideally, we would have a senior with the junior as the alternate. The junior would be making really a 2-year commitment to this so that they can experience it a bit as a junior and grow into that as a senior. I think the only final thing for us to discuss is, what if we have multiple applicants? How do we select who is the one selected senior, the one selected junior from each of our high schools?
I think that might be where we have like an interview.
Couple board members and a principal, right, each side?
So in the event of more than one junior, senior applicant from each school, there would be an interview panel, if you would, that's represented by a board member, an administrator. We could leave it flexible and somewhat vague to give us that flexibility.
Yeah,
Or
I like
two
it.
administrators, one from each high school.
Yeah,
I like
it
it.
adds an element of formality to it also. Yes, I like that.
Right, absolutely.
I would ask if, I know that senior and the junior's an alternate, but few of the meetings, they can both come, so the
They could
junior
come
can.
to all of them, I think, right?
Oh, all four?
They can come to all of them. I think for the management, we would probably want to just have 2 seats at the table, and the others could be sitting in the
But I just want to make
audience.
it clear that they would be welcome. They're not alternate, like for the BOCES budget meeting, she might go, and on the alternate, I only go if she doesn't go, but I would like to see them invited to,
Yeah,
Well, I
They're
think
the
that's
official
point of
alternates.
learning.
yeah.
And it just gives them the
Clarifying, yeah.
exposure
Yeah.
to a 2-year process, potentially of learning, following along the development of a policy or the different discussion threads that happen. And this way, if they are called upon to sit at the table, they were there last month. They know that certain questions were asked and certain topics are pertinent, so that they don't need to be brought up to speed. They're up to speed already.
Right.
I like it.
So I can work on drafting a policy, and I shared with the policy committee, this was discussed at a recent policy committee meeting. The policy committee got to see sample policies from other districts, neighboring districts that have student ex officio board members, and got a sense of how they go about selecting their student board member. What I'd suggest for policy is that we designate that it's the board president or his designee, and the high school principal or his designee, to be able to, your alternate could be an assistant principal, and Ed, you could designate anyone on the board, so that we have a board rep and a high school administrative rep from each school.
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
Anyone against it? Marla, you good?
Yeah, I love that plan. I think it sounds great. Thank you.
right
I
next to
think that's it. With
Yeah,
them,
going viral.
Thank you,
guys,
Mr. Brinker.
2 weeks
Thank you, Mr.
detention,
Brinker.
and we'll see you in a month.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So again, no official vote or anything on anything like that. How you doing? We will move on to D, auditoriums.
Thank you. Wanted the opportunity to share with the board, my apologies.
That medicine ball, you got to hit that again.
I don't know if it's cutting it right now.
Marla screwed it up.
On January 21st, we had a meeting with Young and Wright to review the building condition survey, and specifically the building condition survey. It wasn't the entire survey, specifically to our auditoriums, our high school auditoriums, middle school auditoriums, which, as the board's aware, that was something that was put up in a referendum to voters about a year ago, was not supported by our voters. Nonetheless, the needs are still there, and the needs in many ways are growing. Because of the age of our equipment, we are running into extreme difficulty with replacement parts. The light bulbs that we utilize in our high school auditoriums, the house lighting, if you will, those are running on the market, when we can find them, anywhere between $30 and $60 a bulb, and they are not high-efficiency LED lights. They are lights that are going with regular frequency and need to be regularly replaced. There's concerns with our rigging system, which those of you, if you're not familiar, rigging system is the weighted pulley system that we utilize to raise and lower any of our props, our lighting stands, those things on our auditorium stages. So the building condition survey really looked at what needs to be done. We are not considering anything aesthetically at this point. So not replacement of seats, not replacement of carpeting, or painting of the interior of the auditorium. It really is looking at those things that are critical need and critical replacement around rigging, lighting, and the sound system. And so in meeting with Young and Wright, they gave a complete and thorough overview of this. The total estimated price is $8.5 million. It's approximately $2 million per auditorium. High schools are a bit more expensive than the middle schools, but about $2 million in auditorium for a total price of just over $8 million. On Friday, Will Thiel met with our financial advisor on how we may be able to present this, if we should go out to voters with a referendum this May, and what the timeline could look like for that. We do have capital reserves that could be used to offset that, but I wanted to plant the seed with the board tonight because I'd like to invite Young and Right to do a presentation to the board to go over the details in much greater detail than the overview I'm providing for you tonight of all that would be included in a potential capital improvement project, what would be included for each of the 4 auditoriums, the breakdown of the replacement costs, and then we would get into how we would actually finance this and the utilization of capital reserves so that we can present this to our taxpayers with no local impact on our taxpayers.
So zero impact?
Correct.
I mean,
We would be using capital reserves to offset the local share.
Right.
But is that just for this year that we're offsetting it? Because how are we offsetting $8.5 million over the term?
So how we fund our capital improvement projects is we borrow that money up front, so we would incur debt. There's a debt service that goes along with that, and we're able to repay that debt through the money that we get back on state aid. So what's left then is the local share, and that local share is what we would have to cover either by asking taxpayers to contribute to that or using money out of our reserves. And so we would be able to cover that local share through the use of reserves. So we'd be initially taking out debt for the capital improvement project.
I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. One, those auditoriums are used every day, not just for one show on a weekend. Classes are held in there. Right, I mean, I've never been in
It's
a
a
building
daily
that's been
instructional
open
space.
without something going on in an auditorium. It's a great, so it does count for state aid and all that, like,
Yes.
awesome, okay.
They are used daily as an instructional space, which is problematic in some of our auditoriums where the house lighting is failing. At East Middle, which I was in just about a week ago, they're trying to hold their instructional classes during the day with house lighting that is failing.
Yeah, and I mean, we're renting lighting and spending a lot, like, they don't manufacture these light bulbs, and what I understand is whoever hoarded the most is now selling them for whatever they can get. Plus, they're dangerous. If I'm not mistaken, last year's musical at West, light exploded, and this year's, somewhere, I think at East, it's exploded. And I don't mean like exploded like a bomb, I mean exploded like, it's not safe. And the money we're spending renting, I think is crazy sometimes to do what we're doing. So I think it's 0% tax increase, but I think it's going to save the district funds or save our theater department funds. I don't know where the money, who pays for what, but I think it's again, no-brainer. We just have to get out of the community and explain it well. I think, especially like a presentation at the senior center or something like that, explain what we're investing in. We're not just wasting money.
It's also a benefit to the community because then we'll enhance the usage from community groups for this, right? Dance recitals, community events can be held there if all of the equipment is updated just to, current standards.
And to your point, Ed, we are, I was recently in touch with the music department to try to get a sense of what our rental expenses, and we are spending thousands of dollars to bring in supplemental lighting equipment for our school musicals because we don't have the capacity right now in our current lighting system and lighting board that's needed for our school musicals.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that this is a safety issue. This is like downright a safety issue.
I
that,
would be cautious on the way you say that, because if it's a safety issue, and it's that severe of a safety issue, I would say that they should not be utilized on until it is corrected, only because if we're acknowledging it's a safety issue, and it's that severe of a safety issue, are we then liable as in the district if we allow them to use these until it is repaired?
Well, I mean, think about if you have a light.
I'm just saying, I'm erring on caution.
Jeremy's making an excellent
No,
point.
you're making an excellent point, but
I
a
think
light
what-
pops and
I
you're
think
in there
what's
in the
saying-
classroom.
I think what's saying, it is safe now, we're not putting kids
Correct.
in jeopardy, but it's an
No.
eroding issue.
Correct.
that is going, so,
Let me-
you're both absolutely right. But I just want,
Let me correlate it to our tracks. Remember when our tracks were 1 year away from being told we cannot use them anymore because they will be unsafe?
Yeah.
We're probably
We're probably there.
hitting that, is the word precedent.
Well, Plumbing
And
safety issue.
I think that level of detail, when Young and with the board's support, we would have a more detailed presentation on this during our February 11th meeting, where you can have a detailed overview of what was revealed in the building condition survey. If anything truly was unsafe for student use, we would immediately shut it down. I think the reality is, though, that day is likely in the near future for us, that we've been limping along as long as we can and trying to get replacement parts for as long as we can. Many of these equipment pieces are original to the building, meaning they're 60-plus years old, and getting replacement parts are just no longer feasible. So we're to a point where we don't want to continue to throw good money at bad and to do a full replacement, because our ongoing repairs, our escalating costs for repairs, and also our rental expenses continue to rise. And this project will cost us more today than it would have costed. Everything escalates every year. So had this project been approved a year ago, it would have been done at those dollars as of a year ago. We are now all dealing with the escalating prices of not only equipment, but also labor.
Yeah, so that's why I say, Jeremy, is that.
No, I'm
the
just
public
saying to
wasn't
err on
aware, and
the-
I
err-
get what you're
err
saying.
on the
It's
side
not
of
to alarm
caution.
anyone. But again, as the nurse, stop throwing a Band-Aid on this when, we've got to go to surgery. That's really where the situation is.
So-
And the public has to be aware of that. We are a celebrated music community with our musicals, with all of our programs. They use them for education. So to sit on this again, we just have to make sure the public is aware this is a need and not just a pretty fancy
I think
one.
it's more than a safety, it's an economic issue that we're throwing bad money toward. We're throwing good money to a bad situation.
Right.
And the fact is that, it's going to be more expensive than had this passed last year, but last year, we were also asking for a contribution of an increase in taxes from our community. This time, we're not. We are refiguring and doing it, taking a different approach to paying for it. It was a number 2 last year, the roofs were a number 1, it was a number 2. Now the roofs are set, it's our number 1. So we need to address it.
But I would like to see the long-term budget for the reserves and for the payment of this, because I understand we're saying it's not going to cost, an increase this year, but I don't want 2, 3, 5 years down the road, all of us saying, okay, we have to increase the taxes by this much because now we don't have the reserves to cover the cost of this loan we took out.
So let me just get a couple clarifying questions. So if it's 8.5 million, what percentage is state aid? Is it like 70 or 80 or?
76.
So 76. So 76% of that's covered automatically. So the other math person in the room, help me out. Like
24.
24, but what is that of 8.5 million? Like,
2.1.
so 2.1 million is all that we have to figure out how to cover?
We
And
will put that in up front.
we put that in up
And
front.
I understand that, but does that deplete us too much? So what if we have a main sewer line go bad or something catastrophic in one of our schools, which could happen any day? Are we going to be that depleted that now we have to take a loan out to cover that as compared to have it in the reserves?
And that-
Still have 2.5 million in capital reserve.
And capital reserves can only be spent on capital reserve projects?
Correct.
And the
Voted on
sewer,
by voters.
yeah, and the sewer thing wouldn't be part of that, right?
Well, if we had a catastrophic failure of a roof, a sewer, there are avenues to do emergency projects. And we could pursue an emergency project, which is not what we're considering in this situation. This is something that would be a capital improvement project going out to our voters. But I've made some notes here of, and you're right, these are choices that the board will need to make, both short-term of what our urgent and immediate needs are, and what the long-term implications are of that. Because certainly if we use our capital reserves for this project, that will be lesser dollars that we will have available for some other project. That is the reality of it. But I do believe that the needs are that critical right now, and we are continuing to see our costs escalate for repair and replacement and rental, that it's something that we really need to address. And so what I'm asking for your support is for that time at the February 11th meeting to invite Young and Wright in to do a more thorough overview of the building condition survey, the conditions specifically of the auditoriums, and then with that, what is the financial plan for how we would go about funding that project? And with your feedback, we can certainly look at what do we have in reserves altogether, what we would plan to be using for this project, and what that means for us long-term.
And not for anything, but if they were updated, to Laura's point, they could have some ROI and be getting money from organizations utilizing that space. So that would be
Another way to
what I
offset
would hope.
cost, yeah.
Potentially for community use.
Things have to be
Yeah, we
factored
used to
in.
have our
So you have a
theaters
clear picture, I
lot.
think that's what Jeremy's asking.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I would have is, and it's going to be more of a Young and Right thing, is this 8.5 million. Is this worst-case scenario? Because we all know with every project that comes up, they find, things that have to be added. So is our 8.5 going to turn into 12.3? That's,
Is that with-
I want worst-case, like, this is what we're thinking, but this is worst-case, and that's how I think we should be looking at every project, because it always goes up. It's never, oh, hey, it's 8.5, and oh, no, we came in at 4. No, it doesn't go that way. And it's 8.5, and it's going to come in probably at 10 or 12. So that's my concern, and that avenue, now your reserves are gone, so.
Yeah, well, I also don't want to be where, because you can only spend what's approved, I don't want to be where, okay, we're just doing the high schools. We have to cut out the middle schools now, because we'll never get those, we can't go back and do another one for
They're on
theaters.
significant need,
Yeah.
we need to make sure something happens.
That's why you have to get them done.
Yeah.
But if you remember several years ago, the roofs were taken out because cost, and then they were done again. I don't think we could do that with theaters.
I spent a lot of time
Longer
with
it
the
takes to get 'em
auditoriums
done.
in my entire life, but again, in the last couple of months with getting ready for musicals with kids, there's some big needs for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to be a point that's going to have to be driven home to the community, is that regardless of redistricting, reconfiguration, whatever you want to call it, coming up, these 4 auditoriums need to be done regardless.
They're staying open
And they'll be
they're
used.
going to
Yeah.
be used.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you,
point.
guys.
Well, I think the biggest factor for is the 76% that we get reimbursed by the state, because, before I really started getting involved, I had no idea. So when you say 8.5 million, like, it looks like, hey, we're pulling 8.5 million, and today it's not going to affect you, but it will down the road. So, that's something huge that people don't understand.
And I think the point I've made in the past is if we don't take the 70 whatever % from the state doesn't turn around and give it back to us as citizens. So let's get whatever we can to improve our local district out of the state money.
Yearly.
Because I've never,
Yearly,
yeah.
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah, it's really, really a shame that we didn't do more capital improvement projects over the last 20 years.
We all
It's really
know
a
that,
shame.
yeah. That's.
But, another way to look at it too is, even though we're taking it out of reserves, that's still taxpayer money. It's not,
Yes,
it's not
but-
our money that.
The state's not, what I'm saying is the state's not lowering our taxes if we don't apply for
It's
these
earmarked
funds.
for that, so.
It's an investment.
We use it where another district asks for it.
Yeah, that's what.
No, yeah, I understand that, but I
Or
just,
stadium, or,
you understand that then it will one day have to be replenished, so it, at some point will cost. It's not,
they use the word revenue, I use the word taxes.
you gotta think like a taxpayer, you can't just think like it's your money yet.
Think like a student who wants to be on the stage, Jeremy.
I have no problem with doing the work as long as we do it the right way.
Yeah, spend the money wisely. And that's, the other point with Young and Right, they can approach or discuss. I want to make sure everything we're doing isn't something where, let's say the world, all of a sudden we get a ton of money and we're redoing the theaters, we got to tear the lights back out again. Like everything I want this to be the last, like, I don't want to spend money redoing things that in 5 years, say we have to redo something else, that, okay, we gotta tear these lights out, and I'd like it to be long-term,
Continuous improvement, like
Yeah.
one step along bettering the theaters.
like,
Saying because you need new seats, now you need new lights too.
yeah. Yeah, so does that make sense?
It
Like,
does,
yeah.
it does.
Well, we're not, we're not kicking out a wall in 5 years to expand it, so therefore none of the rigging works anymore, that sort of thing, so.
We're not building a football field and ripping out a baseball field, not having a baseball field.
Yes,
Having
and then-
Football field.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Trying to be good. I'd appreciate that. It happens.
Not by us. Any other, Marla, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good with that discussion.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Sarah's not causing you any problems there? You're good? Anything else on this discussion then? No, I meant on the auditoriums. Everyone's good? Okay, we'll move on to E. Would Mrs. Starbucks please come on up and join us? You can sit with it. You have a name tag.
I have a name tag.
You can go up there,
I'd
that's
rather
fine.
be up here,
All right.
because I'm moving
Just
up
remember,
there.
I'm
You're going
here
there.
for the baseball game. Okay, hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Okay. So I did watch the board meeting from last month, and there was a lot of questions, obviously. I just wanted to make sure that I was able to go over a little bit of the history of combining of schools, because I'm not sure how many people know it. It is actually a New York State policy, combining of schools, so we are held to rules and regulations within that. And we're allowed to combine schools for one of three reasons. One, it is to foster the emergence of a new sport, so we currently do that with girls flag football and some of our unified teams. So the second one, is to support a school that has a declining number of participants. This is typically what we have fallen into. And then the third one is financial reasons. The guidelines for this is it has to be approved by the Board of Education. That's step one. Must be approved by our league, which is the Erie County League, and then it has to be approved by the section. The section will not hear any of the requests if it isn't approved by the board or the league. Applications must be submitted with all signatures. Classifications, that's determined by a graduated scale, which I'll kind of get into a little bit later. And then there's a vote by the Athletic Council. The Athletic Council is made up of our 4 different leagues, plus the Erie County Superintendent's reps, the Niagara County Superintendent's reps, and then the actual section committee. Once that gets approved, then it's combined for a year. At the end, it's combined for a year. You have to fill out some paperwork, and then you can readmit if you want to. The timeline right now is fall sports are no later than the March meeting. I actually have all of our applications on the next agenda. I think we just submitted them for the next agenda, which then they will go here for the next agenda, and then go to the section following that. Winter sports is no later than the May meeting, and spring sports is no later than the September meeting. I know somebody asked previously what our combinations for the spring. We actually approved all of our combinations last year, so nothing, unless it's an emergency situation, is changing, which I will go over that too. At the end of the season, I'm required to submit a combining of schools end of season report. It's a detailed report that takes the rosters. They want to know how many kids from each school. They want to know how you did. Were we dominant? Did we destroy every team in our bracket? What were the scores? What accolades were there? And what our projection is for next year. At the end of that season, what happens is there's a combining of schools committee. Mr. Sorticio, the Eden superintendent, is in charge of that, and I believe he's got 5 reps on that, and that committee looks at, basically, they take a look at your combination. How did you do? Did you dominate? Are you a team that has a lot of sophomores and you were beating every team by 10 goals? Do you really need to combine? Is there 15 kids from this school and 15 kids from this school? What are your reasons? They take a look at it and then they make recommendations. In fact, our section athletic council, we just had to approve two mergers that are being bounced up to the next level because of their competitiveness. The section can reserve the right to deny your application. That is typically done, if they're going to deny it, they're going to deny it based on your classification. We are in the highest classification. We are two large schools that are merged, so we are always going to be at the top tier. People that might be moved up would be your smaller schools. You could take an Eden and North Collins. They may be down in the B bracket or in the C bracket, so they may get moved up. But we are always, with all of our combinations, because it comes down to beds numbers, we are already at the highest tier. These are our current combinations. So I did put the years next to them. This is based on the programs, girls ice hockey, and just so everybody understands, girls ice hockey, for all the teams in girls ice hockey, they are all combined. We actually are merged with 5 schools on that one. Girls bowling has been since 2015. Field hockey 2019. Girls swim went back and forth a little bit, but has been steady since 22. Girls flag football, like I said, since 22, since the inception of it. Modified cheerleading was a pilot program, sort of, that was added last year, so that is in its first year of being combined. Girls soccer was in its first year of being combined. Girls tennis bounced back and forth a couple times. We had to merge due to low enrollment. Same with girls cross country. Boys swimming, boys tennis, boys golf have all been since 2015. Boys wrestling, 2018. Boys soccer, 22. And then boys bowling and boys cross country are new this year. All our unified teams are combined. That is unified bowling, unified basketball, and then our unified bocce club/team. And then our co-ed modified swim team and co-ed modified cross-country team are combined. This is our numbers for the fall. The X's in there mean that we didn't have that team. They weren't a combined team. So you can see you have the total number for each of those. I broke them up into East and West. They have the varsity, the JV, and then the modifieds. I believe you were given the packet. You can kind of see some of them are even, some of them are not. I'd ask you to look at girls field hockey. Where's another one? Girls swim. Because I'll come back to those in a little bit. Am I okay to move on? Okay. And then these were the winter participation numbers. Our current season right now, again, girls ice hockey looks small, but we are West Seneca East, West Seneca West, Hamburg, Eden. Yeah, we're back to 4. We were at 5 last year. And then modified swim, modified wrestling. Okay. Some of the concerns when it comes to combining, in talking with the kids and kind of looking at our numbers, one of the biggest concerns is the lack of identity. Some of our own kids feel like they are visitors on their own team. Transportation, I believe Mr. Maloney brought it up last time, but transportation is a concern with our combined teams because we can only practice at one facility. So we have to have a shuttle, we have to go pick them up, we have a bunch of, some teams practicing at West, some teams practicing at East. We also might have some modified kids that have to come up. So transportation does get a little tricky on that. There are certain programs that we do see an increase in athletes that are cut. But the bigger concern is the increase of trend of athletes quitting due to the fact of they may start out the season where they have 6 friends that they are in school with that are going over to the other team, and then all of a sudden 3 of them aren't there anymore, then 2, then we're down to 1. And that's why I kind of pointed out the girls field hockey. We're seeing less and less. This is the 3rd year in a row I've only had 1 girls field hockey player from East. We see that on the other side with girls swim. We have a high number of participants from the east side. We have a very low number of participants from the west side. We just had that happen with modified swim. Our east numbers were great. West was at 5, and as of last week, I'm down to nobody from the west side.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So in a case like that where it's one student who wants to participate, you have to have had that combined application in, like, almost a year ahead of time? Or would they make an exception?
So usually I can get an exception for some of those. So if it's something where we haven't, let me take a team.
Where it wasn't anticipated?
Yeah, so let's take last year's, we were able to form JV East softball. Okay, so let's say didn't have enough. In that situation where we ended up having 3 or 4 ninth graders come out, and they weren't varsity level, they weren't modified level, that would be something where I have looked at the west side, and then said, okay, is it feasible? Do you want to go over there? And we've done this before. We actually did this. Mr. Beatty daughter was part of the soccer team. We had to do an emergency combination with that. But we've been able to do that. I've gone to the section, gone to the superintendent first, said, this is what I want to do. I want to try to do it. Can I ask the section for an emergency merger? Usually if I go to the section and you plead your case about an emergency merger, they're very good on that. Because our big thing across the section is we want the opportunity for kids. We're trying to increase the opportunity for kids. And then I am very honest with the parents as far as here's your options. You can stay on your own home side. You could move up, be with the varsity team. Playing time's probably going to be very minimal. But here you're at least you're learning the program. We could go down, we ask our league for a 7, 8, 9 team, which is the model. Talk to the parents, say, okay, we're going to do the 7, 8, 9 model. We have approval for that, but a lot of times our ninth graders don't want to go back to middle school. Or we can work on getting you over to the west side, combine, but you're with girls you might not know. Sometimes they take advantage. Soccer, we were able to make it through a season. We had enough, but that was kind of the last resort where we're like, okay, now we have to finally combine. We did look at that before in the situation of softball the year previous, and I had nobody interested in going over to the west side. But yes, to answer your question, in those situations, you go to the section with an emergency merger. They do that, side note, if I think girls JV basketball for East, we were set to run. We were going to run. It wasn't until 7 days into the season we're like, we can't do this. If that was a situation where it would have benefited to merge with West, I would have asked for that one. At that point, in talking with the coaches, the kids, we had other options that was more beneficial for them to stay and us to go a 7, 8, 9 modified in a varsity team. So, but the section is very good on those late ones. So my proposals for next year, basically I have no new combinations. I am not looking for any combinations. I've looked at our numbers. I actually want to demerge. I want to demerge for modified winter cheer. Our numbers skyrocketed, which is great. Fall, they would still be combined. The fall numbers are not, I think, I'd have to go back and look, but I think I was around 28. Which is actually a healthy number.
Can I interrupt you? Can you teach me about cheerleading? Fall cheerleading, is this not the people that cheer at the football games?
No, fall cheer, yeah, good question.
It's a separate thing,
So,
right?
no. Fall cheerleading is your football.
Okay.
So that is football cheer, but it's called fall cheerleading.
So again, I was at football games and there were kids on both sides. Did you say they were combined or they weren't?
Just modified.
Just modified.
So that's like the modified
Seven-
JVV?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And then
So
what
I was never in cheerleading.
That's okay. What I would like to do is demerge for winter. We had a lot of girls try out. We had to make cuts on that. So I think the interest is there. So I would like to offer a winter East cheer and a winter West cheer. We have 3 programs that I've watched these numbers for 2 years now. And we have a lot of girls that are interested on the west side in playing volleyball. Our number that came out this year was at 50. You can only put 6 girls on a court. So the coach did a great job. Coach Bonato did a great job. She kept a very high roster. But I would like to add a modified B West girls volleyball team. And then I would like to do the same with boys basketball on the east and west side. Our basketball numbers are growing. It's wonderful. But we're cutting a lot of kids, and I think the interest is there in offering a B team. And then I'd also like to explore, this is the first year the section is going to offer a 7, 8, 9 modified girls flag football team. We weren't ready yet. I would like to try that for next year.
Flag football?
Yes.
And I know the reason, and again, if I'm lying about this, tell me. The reason we didn't do 2 teams was it was a new sport. There was only 10 openings, because we have a ton of kids playing. It wasn't because of participation.
No,
So this
so-
is a great way to.
Yep, it's a start in the right direction, so yes. The reason we did a combined team to start was, number one, an emerging sport. Still in looking, we have a lot of girls interested in flag football, but the full commitment for the season, I don't know that it's there yet because we have a lot of dual sport athletes. So that kind of takes away, and then we have a lot that they weren't, I wouldn't say they were fully committed. What we're looking at this year is to see for the 9th through 12th graders, we have a roster now, we have a new coach, we're looking at keeping 28. The dual sport may not work out this year because it's very hard with the increase in the amount of flag football games. So we have to sit down and talk about that. But then what we'd like to see is, I think I have enough, because of all the continuing ed programs and the rec programs that are going on with younger kids playing flag football. I think we have an increase in that, and currently we're not allowing 7th and 8th graders to play it, and I've had kids reaching out. So I think it's an emerging sport that I would like to see our modified numbers. Then if I have the modified numbers and the varsity numbers are still around 28, then I think we're in the right direction to demerge.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of girls.
There's a lot of interest. That dual sport does complicate a lot of things because there's only so many days in the week to play a game. So I'm trying to figure some stuff out this year, but I'll know a better number set.
It depends on what the other sport is, too. There is no boys flag football.
There's no boys
No
flag
boys,
football.
even as like it's football or nothing. Okay. And there's no
There's soccer.
soccer. Yes, football.
Football.
No mention of, am I interrupting maybe intramurals?
I don't oversee intramurals.
At all?
Those are out of the buildings.
Okay, so
I
I
can-
have a question about it. Do you want it now or?
I
at the
can
end?
try to answer it.
Well, the question is, and I would think there's a lot of people like me who maybe did more theater stuff, who would never play a professional high school sport all that well unless maybe a lineman.
Maybe cheerleading.
The intramurals is what I really enjoy.
Yes. We have offered.
I know you had mentioned we were increasing our intramural programs.
Yes.
How are those? And if you can't answer it, can we just get an update at some point?
Everything I've seen is, I have to say, the building principals have been great in working with Will and supporting him, and the PE teachers at the buildings have been running a ton since, this would probably be the past 2 years, the most that I've seen. I know.
there's a lot.
I know at West Middle, we're dropping off Cameron 4 days a week. I know they had a Friday night fun night. I know the elementary schools are running them all the time. Mr. Overton has a triathlon. He's got a swim intramurals. I think I think they're running them. I don't have the exact dates or the calendar, but I could get it for you. But this is the most in the 5 years that I've been here.
Yeah, and it seems like if we've got a high, like volleyball, we had high
Yes.
interest, intramural volleyball, like.
Yes.
Maybe I already know the answer, and I'm just trying to say accolades to the board and the district for.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It does not come out of my budget. I just know that I know what I'm hearing from my people. I know what I'm dropping off at school. I know the gym trying to rearrange schedules. I know that part. But I know that the principals have been great, and if the coaches, the teachers want to run it, they go to the principals with a proposal, and they've been able to make it happen. It's been wonderful.
I just want to say, this makes my heart so happy, especially with the modified teams getting B teams, because I know, at least on the west side, over the past couple of years, I think I was told like 48 boys tried out for basketball this year, and you can't keep that many.
Yep.
And you don't want to lose them. And a lot of kids don't come back out the next year. And then, you end up with a basketball team this year that the varsity team has 8 seniors.
Yeah.
and 2 juniors. So like, how are we growing our program? And I think this is going to go a long way to grow those programs.
Love it.
I
Yeah,
do.
it's definitely a step in the right direction.
I'm very excited for it. Again, sometimes it's just watching the trend of the numbers to make sure. It is a little difficult. I'd like to pre-plan for these, which is why I put it in my proposal. I think these 3 teams especially, actually 4 with cheer, but I think these ones have shown that they have the numbers, and planning for it will make it a lot easier as far as building the schedule, building the practice schedule, making sure our parents, our kids are known for it. Adding it after makes it difficult, especially with the schedule purposes, but I'm very confident in these 4. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think keeping our middle schoolers active and within the program will help us with some of those that drop off in 9th grade that have caused some of these other combinations. Just to make sure I did clarify, these are the addition, the other programs are still set to combine. So you'll be seeing those at the next board meeting. So just in case I did not say that the right way.
I know you touched on it before, but you said when we combine the teams, we're at the top level. So essentially, we're playing different teams than we would if we were separate schools.
So for East, yes. So typically our schools, that's a great question. So we are in the Erie County League, ECIC, and right now there's 29 regular schools. We do have, I shouldn't say it that way. There's 29 schools that have been there, and then we've been given 2 charter schools, but the charters sometimes don't fit totally in all of our section. West is always at the top bracket. West, it goes, and I should know this, I've worked on this left and right. It goes Lancaster, then Orchard Park, Frontier, Will North, then Clarence, then us right now. And that's by beds numbers. And then you have your Division II, which typically will be Sweet Home, Williamsville East, Williamsville South, Star Point. West Seneca East has been a bubble, and we've been in that bracket, or in Division III. West is always used to playing these schools, so when we merge, it's nothing new for West. When we merge with East, it's very new for East. It's new for East families, and it's new for East kids to now go from playing a Will South, a Will East, to an Orchard Park, to a Lancaster.
How competitive are our combined teams?
Great question. So, let me go back. So, we're seeing growth. Boys soccer, I will say, and I should have brought my other slide because I'll get to that in a second. Boys soccer, their competitiveness is growing. This was probably the most competitive soccer year I've seen in my 5 years of being here, and that was them being separate and now them being together. I think they are headed in the right direction. Are we winning in that division? No, but we are no longer losing 10-0. West Seneca East, when it was separate and in the lower division, they were still losing 10-0, 12-0, 15-0. This was by far the most competitive boys soccer season I've seen in my 5 years, and I did have parent emails, compliments of it. Girls soccer is in its first year, so I hate to use any data on that. They're relatively new, but I will tell you, if you take a look at our girls soccer scores from separate, again, we were 17-0, West Seneca East versus Williamsville East. West Seneca East versus Will South, it was 10-0. So we are in competitive games where we are losing. I think our game against Orchard Park was 5-3, Frontier 2-1. So I can't say with them with girls soccer, I need more time. Boys cross country, girls cross country, boys were very competitive, they won this year. Girls, we are working on getting our numbers back up. Field hockey, again, they are actually very competitive, but we only have one person from East right now. Girls swim, individual sports are hard to say because you could have devil's advocate, you could say, okay, but I took my individual scores and I may have done better versus an individual from a smaller school than the higher school.
Can I ask you a different question?
Sure.
How competitive are teams that aren't combined?
So I could give you both the positives and the negatives, and it really depends. It depends. I guess let me tell you from this way. I'm gonna side rail this conversation to go a different direction. Right now, we're in the Erie County League, and we do everything based on beds numbers. He knows this. I am fully against that. I don't think that we should be basing anything by beds numbers because, again, I think what we're seeing in high school athletics is the haves and have-nots. If you have the means for travel leagues, you will do very well. If you do not, even if I can open gyms and have camps and all this stuff, I still have to be able to get people here and transportation and just, the ability we've got, it's just different. And I think in an effort to save high school athletics across this area, I think the league as well as the section needs to start breaking schools up by competitiveness. I have formed a committee. It's schools in need. I haven't worked out a great acronym name yet, but it's schools in need basically. And we have our first meeting. On Thursday at Erie One BOCES, and it's how can we help schools that are struggling? How can we, if you go, girls soccer is a great one that I like to use. Out of the 29 ECIC schools, 8 of them have no JV program. 2 of them don't even have a girls soccer program anymore. Those 8 with no JV program, they're going to have no soccer program anymore. And it's only going to be left to the schools that have the needs to compete. Because what's happening is if you get beat 15-0 for 4 months, they're not coming back. They don't want to work. I don't blame them. They want to go make money. They want to go home and have fun. They don't want to get beat again the next time around. And I've been trying with a couple other schools to convince other ADs that if we don't change this and make it more fun and make it more competitive, we are losing our kids across Western New York. So,
Next question
yeah.
about that. So why do they do that for girls lacrosse?
So girls lacrosse is federated. So, great question. Girls lacrosse is federated, and they have the schedule that I absolutely love. And federated means that just like football, the section generates their schedule. Boys ice hockey, football, girls lacrosse, girls flag football are all federated sports. We are based on our league. I've already said it to multiple people. If I could leave and be a league of one, I would be a league of one. Because West Seneca, boys basketball right now, West boys basketball is my prime example. It took 5 years, and we finally were able to convince the league to allow us to go independent. While I think our record right now is 5-5. 5-6, thank you.
Yes.
They're playing right now. But the games they are losing are competitive. I'm seeing enjoyment, I'm seeing learning, I'm seeing competitive games and kids that want to come back the next day. Not to say that we always have to be that way, but we should be trying to let our kids play within their competitive rates. Like, we try to set them up for success. I don't know a better way to say it, but so that's my push. I don't have a good answer on are our combined teams more successful than they're not, because it depends on the division that they're in. It depends on, is it a team sport? Is it not a team sport? I can tell you that when it comes to combined teams, there's a lot of things I have to look at. I have to make sure that we're putting out a healthy and safe roster. If there's a soccer team that requires 11 on the field, I cannot make it a full season with 13 kids, because those 13 kids aren't showing up every day. Those 13 kids are now you're going to have injuries. We have academic eligibilities. You have absenteeism. And they get tired. So now we're down to 9. 9 is not a healthy number to put out there. It will get us hurt, especially because West is going against your Lancasters, Orchard Park Frontiers, East is going against your Will Souths and your Will East and your Hamburgs and your Star Points. I have to make sure that we're putting out a healthy rostered team.
I don't want you to think my question was to imply it's all about the wins. 'Cause
Yeah.
that is absolutely not what I meant. I just wanted to know if by us combining teams, are we now just getting blown out because we
No.
have a number of questions? So-
It's a great question, and I've gone back and forth, especially like on girls soccer, and that's what I'm still looking at. But boys soccer, I've been to so many boys soccer games my 5 years here, and I think we're really going in the right direction. I've seen competitive games, and again, a competitive game, we may lose 3-0, but we had, I wish I knew the score. I think it was Clarence. And we lost, I want to say 2-1 or 3-1, but it was 0-0 with like 10 minutes left in the game to Clarence. Like, those are the things I'm like, okay, we're going in the right direction. This is going in the right direction. So I honestly think we're at a good point with our combined, me personally, we're at a good point with our combined teams. I'm not like, oh my God, they're going to be combined forever. If we can get our numbers back up and we see our numbers grow, we're back to separating. My big push right now is to try to get our league, our section, to understand that they need to change how they do business. It's baby steps right now. Like I said, with the boys, I've asked for independent status for a number of our teams. I was finally able to get boys basketball there. But I think we're growing in certain areas, and we need to keep exploring that, make sure we're adding our teams, and then look at scheduling differences.
Well, Marissa, you and I have talked a lot about this over the years. I've had a front row seat for a good 10 years now. And ECI sheet, how hard you work just to get what you just described, to finally get them to agree to letting one team go independent. I have zero faith in the ECIC changing the way that they do business in the next 5 to 10 years. Zero faith. So I believe that we need to dictate and make decisions based on what's best for our kids. When you talk about those rosters that are safe rosters, and I want to know how many football players on the west side and the east side play both ways. How many players on the east baseball team and the west baseball team are pitchers? And how many innings are they pitching? And how are they doing and developing as athletes in our current model of having them separated? Because when I look at it, our current model is you have a varsity team on each side, you have a JV on each side, you have a modified on each side. My contention is if you combine, you could have a varsity team, a JV team, a freshman team, an 8th grade team, and a 7th grade team. So instead of having 6 teams, you would only have 5 teams, but you would have teams at every level where you don't have to have on varsity sophomores playing because they can play JV where they belong, because there's enough juniors and seniors to roster a varsity team. Freshmen don't have to play JV, or as we currently have, a freshman playing on a varsity basketball team, probably a little bit out of his end. You wouldn't have to have that. I understand the downfall of the combined and the loss of identity, but as you also indicated, that a rising tide will boost all ships. And when we start winning and stop losing, we start developing kids, then we'll be better off. And when we look at what we don't have combined is football. What we don't have combined is lacrosse, baseball, basketball, and ice hockey, and volleyball. And the only one there that's doing well on a consistent basis is volleyball. So football obviously has had their moments. But I think it's worth looking at what would it look like for our students and our athletes in our program developmentally if we had one combined team across the board.
So, can I answer? So I've looked at that. I'm a sports junkie and I don't have a lot to do, so I look at a lot of stuff. I looked at basketball after last year and said, what would happen if I did combine? And I do, believe me, if somewhere in the future we were a combined high school and all together, yeah, I could see myself running modified A, modified B, freshman, JV, and a varsity. But when I looked at the current numbers for basketball specifically, girls and boys, and I was like, I could probably build a winning team. But there's only so many kids that can make the team. And I looked at it, and I really did not feel comfortable offering that option because of the kids that I would be cutting from the girls program and the boys program. And I said, my conversation with myself, because I do talk to myself, I said, I'm gonna roll with it because I think we can be competitive on separate sides. Let's try for the independent. East, started off the season 4-0. They're playing some tough competition right now, but they're also changing their identity of the program. I looked at the girls' numbers, and I'll be honest, I've got West doing excellent. Knock on wood, they're playing Star Point right now for first place. I looked at East, and we've got a young freshman. We've got 2 young freshmen, actually, who are phenomenal. And I looked at, okay, well, what could I build? Great. Those 2 young freshmen, they could help out West. But what about the rest of them? What are the rest of them going to do? And they're not going to get that experience. And I don't know that we're there yet because, again, that identity piece. I feel like some of those girls and some of those boys would just say, it's not my team. I'm not going there. And to me, I wasn't ready to make that pitch to the board because I think I can offer, like I said, boys, East, they just beat Lackawanna last week. They've got, they're getting some quality wins. I think they're at 5 or 6 wins right now, boys. And then, we're developing our JV program. Our East modified is phenomenal. I think the girls, yes, they're getting some non-league wins, but I really looked at the kids that wouldn't be involved in the program, and I just don't know that they would have stuck it out, being that they're not in the same class. So if something was to change down the line, I could do it. I could absolutely do it. I can build a freshman schedule. I can do all that. But with 4 separate buildings right now, I just don't, me personally, I don't think it's the best for all kids across the board.
Thank you. And I do think by building those modified programs on both sides of town, that is the way to build it. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. Thank you.
A couple questions concerning just, one, do you track the amount of kids that do not make the teams?
So we
Tryouts
so we have not in the past. We were going to start, so it gets a little tricky, but I've looked at that and I can absolutely do it for the future. We have a number of kids that register, but then they don't show up day one. So my numbers, I was trying to take the registration numbers, but those aren't truly who's trying out. So I would have to go by who actually shows up. And I could get those in the future, but I have not tracked it yet.
I'm not giving you an assignment, I would love to see, 50 kids registered, 30 kids showed up. We have 12 on the team, so we had to cut.
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
Well, then everyone gets cut, they kind of disappear, so some of them disappear.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you say that. Like,
Yeah.
Our first day of actual non-preseason participation, we have this many,
Yeah.
I
could definitely do it. I don't know that it would be 100% accurate, because I
No,
will
but
tell you, some just don't show up day 2.
Yeah.
I-
I'd like to just see what the trends are, but again, it's just me saying that would be, all you guys to decide if you're willing to do it or
I
not.
can do it, I definitely
Sure,
had a
yeah.
roundabout number on the sports that I was monitoring, like the girls soccer and stuff. Would you want that for all? Would you
I
want
mean,
that for
again, I'm not
combined?
telling you to do anything. I would love to see it I just like us to have that as a
Okay.
track thing, because in my opinion, the more data, the better. If you've seen that 50 kids are registering and then no one's showing up for the actual tryout, there's an issue. What is it? I don't know. It's just, maybe it's the moms filling out the forms. Great.
That's a lot of times.
again, I have 5 kids, I know what it's like. I'm just asking, again,
Okay.
I just want to be clear, though, it's not an assignment, this is between you guys to discuss if you're interested. But I like that sort of information,
Okay.
I like the data, but I'm not giving assignments. The other question I had is protocols, combined teams especially. How do you decide which side of town? How do you decide, again, I believe you combined girls soccer, was it varsity?
Yeah, all three.
Last year, when?
2.
The most recent one.
Yep.
That, and I want to be clear, my daughter did not make the team. When you combine that, how do you decide which side of town? Because
Great
flag
question.
football was amazing, I think, but it was a little frustrating. They did 1 week west, 1 week east, 1 week west, 1 week east.
Yeah.
Great for the girls, it was just a little confusing.
So that's a great question. So turf time, as you can only imagine, is at a premium, and it's definitely difficult to make a schedule. So what we try to do is, honestly, we try to take a look at the teams that are offered and the schedule that it is, and what the coach can work. Is it a coach that can start at 2:30? Is it a team that can start at 2:30? There's a lot of our teams that can't start at 3 or 3:30 because of BOCES. What does our transportation shuttle schedule look like? Are we going to have a lot of kids that need the shuttle, or are they driving over? Do we have boys soccer, for instance? They were primarily out of East because Coach Bauda, he's like, you know what? I want the later practices. I can get a lot more from kids. I want later practices, so we're going to do this. Where now we had flexibility. Field hockey, she wanted early practices. She could start right at 3 o'clock. So it usually depends a lot of the coaching availability, the turf being open. We have tried to do the schedule where it's 1 week here, 1 week here. That was more problematic. So what we have done, though, is try to at least get games on both sides of town, so that if it's girls soccer, they were primarily out of West. We had 2 games over at East. Boys soccer, though, we had primarily out of East, and then we put two games over at West. Again, because of turf time and the number of teams we do have, it does make it a little difficult, but out of again, the identity with the kids, we want to try to accommodate both. We have only offered swimming out of the east side, primarily because they like that pool better. No offense, Mr. Brinker. But they like that setup a little bit better. So boys and girls swimming is out of east. We also, due to the tennis court conditions, we have elected to stay at east.
I'm happy with the decisions, and I was just curious, was it based on where the coach resides, or if you have 20 kids from West and it's the West team? So what I'm asking is, sometimes you say there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
If one girl's coming over, or one boy's coming over from East, I can totally get it. But if you have 15 kids on each side, is there still a disconnect? Are they going under the West logo?
Nope, it's a West
they-
Seneca. So our colors, right, we don't have a logo because we don't have a mascot, I should say, because I did not want to get into the mascot with a combined team. So right now, we are just West Seneca.
Dr. Kruger is doing redistricting, you might as well throw a mascot.
We've kind of played around, soccer did West Seneca United.
That
It was
was really
super
cool.
cute.
That was really
I
nice.
loved it. I've kind of given them the freedom of, we are going to, the basic colors, it's try to incorporate everything. But if you look at some of the jerseys, you put black, you put yellow, you put blue, you put green in there, it gets a little confusing. So some of ours have gone to black and yellow. Some tried it with they did a nice crest. So it's got the W and the E. We just kind of, when people say, what are you? We're just West Seneca United or just West Seneca. So we have definitely, again, Will was great with my budget. Nobody is playing. If it's a combined team, they are not wearing a Warhawks jersey. If they are a combined team, they are not wearing a Trojan jersey. We have new jerseys and uniforms for that. So
there's not a situation where if they're combined, it's the West team allowing East.
no,
and vice
if it was
versa.
an emergency
Oh, yeah, I get it.
situation, it would be different. But no, we've been able to do all the jerseys that way. We don't have a true mascot. The field and the location of practice and stuff, I am cognizant of it, and I feel a lot of times it just comes down to availability. Again, with a coach, I have some out-of-district coaches that can't start till 5 o'clock, so it's whatever venue's available. but we do try to at least get some games on the other side.
Appreciate it.
Since Ed's handing out assignments, I thought maybe I would, did you say you weren't giving us?
No, I wasn't. I want to be clear. I was making a...
He said he would like
You
to
said
know,
it 4
but he's
times,
not
I thought you
assigning
said it
it.
differently.
Yeah.
I have a curiosity about the number of 8th grade athletes that don't go to our high schools and rather go to private schools.
When they
See
leave,
what number.
when they move on to ninth?
Yeah, so when they go to 9th grade, they go to St. Francis, Timon, St. Mary's in Lancaster.
So you said athletes?
Yes,
It's probably...
just from our team. So if we have, 8th grade kids.
I know
or 8th
what you're
graders
saying,
that
I'm
are-
trying to think, I'll have to see if registration can help me get the exact numbers.
Exit
Is that
survey or
something that we
something.
could-
yeah.
We don't do an exit survey. I will say we've had a handful, more than I've ever had, actually transfer back this year. I did have an 8th grade parent reach out to me about options for next year. We are seeing more of a return, which is nice, but I'll have to check with registration because they're the ones that have to send the packet. So I'd have to get that list.
Out of curiosity.
I guess we could also add in there the number of how many kids we have in 8th grade that do leave in general, too.
Right, right. And that may be a more accurate picture just to see in general what 8th graders are leaving, why they're leaving. We may not know, excuse me, if it's due to athletics or some other reason. It's getting worse as the night goes
I tried to
on.
throw it so you didn't have to talk as much. Any other... Marla, you good?
Any other homework?
Good.
You're quiet. Cool. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Grande Cafe. Thanks for the coffee. Grande Cafe Mocha.
All right, I'm gonna...
Thanks, good job.
Can I make a motion for a 5-minute break?
No, because I was just going to give us a 6-minute break. No.
Really?
Can we take a break? Everyone cool with that?
Sure.
I don't think we need a motion. Again, thank you for the break. Everyone's back here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Marla, good to go. We will move on to Mr. Thiel with our budget development conversation.
Thank you. I just want to first off say, I don't normally shout answers from the peanut gallery, and I apologize for that. But the questions were good, and they're on point, and it's part of what we've been reviewing and thinking about internally, so I just wanted to, numbers that were at the ready, I wanted to just throw out there, so.
Thank you.
I apologize for, just being like the voice in the background.
You're good.
So we're in the budget process now, lots of input coming in. See if I can get that thing to work, there you go. So we're bolding the steps here as we go through them. We're a week late with this presentation. We have received the state aid revenue outlined by the governor, and we're looking at that now, and we have done sort of a first look at the tax cap calculation. We don't have all the data that's available that we need to do the final calculation, but we have done a first look at it. We have not updated those because it's a very quick turnaround in this presentation, but they will be in the next one. So this one is just really to focus on our initial salary projections for next year, and then does sort of show some of the things that have been moving inside of our budget that aren't salary and benefit related in the past. And then next presentation, you'll also see those cost drivers and what the requests are from different areas and departments and buildings for the coming budget year. So we went through our budget goals. If anybody has revisited them and come up with any questions or concerns about them, I'm happy to address any of those questions now. Again, it's about trying to find that right level of staffing that gets done. We have obviously limitations on what we can do. We have contracts. Trying to maintain our facilities, our services in the best possible order we can. Capital projects certainly help that, and hopefully we'll continue a positive push there. Budgetary decisions. There could not be a possibly more confusing time than there is right now. At some point today, federal funds were suspended by the President of the United States, and later in the day, a judge intervened to say, like, not so fast. So how that shakes out, apparently Medicaid sites shut down in various states around the country, and people couldn't, get reimbursed for services. So there's going to be a great deal of confusion as it results in federal funds. We get several $1 million of federal funds, so it's obviously a concern as we try to plan for the year ahead. And we're trying to do our best to be open and communicate. There's a budget postcard that's going out. It has a QR code on it that takes people directly to the budget information page. We're posting all the presentations. We're posting agendas from the Budget Advisory Committee there. We have another meeting on Budget Advisory next week where we've got a email set up. I think it's budget@wseschools.org. We'll be monitoring that and try to answer questions, probably not directly in the email, but probably in our presentations going forward. So I would, people can feel free to start submitting questions on that basis. Nicole, do you know, can you tell me when the postcard goes out?
Just waiting for, finish up getting our list of addresses to come in the next week.
Okay, so in the next 2 weeks, there should be postcards arriving around town.
Can I ask a weird side question? Where do we get a list of addresses from? Like, does it go out to every property in the
Yes.
school district?
Yes, we get them from the post office.
Oh, cool. It's a lot. I'd be curious how many postcards go out. Just
24,000 plus?
We got 21,000 for it.
21,000.
20,000? Cool.
Was a guess. So we have our budget guidelines for instructional
Shoot the wall, got a hamper and all that.
operations, financial stability, and communications, which I just sort of talked about all together. Again, stop me if you have questions on it in any of those areas. Numbers-wise, salary and benefits initial forecast. So this is basically a steady state. We rolled over all our existing positions, adjusted them for contractual increases. And you can see on the top section of the chart, it's about a 3.28% increase in salaries. The reason it's a smaller increase than last year is because last year, remember, we added a lot of positions that came out of the federal grants into the general funds as a result of the expiration of the pandemic funds. So the number of FTEs is not increasing as dramatically as it did last year. So on a steady state basis, about 3.28%. If you look down below at the benefit line, those are the actual percentages that are charged in that, so that's just a function of doing math against the salary base. Workers' comp has been a continual $1 million budget line item. We are usually in good standing there. Healthcare plans are really the biggest challenge, managing our self-funded healthcare plan. Right now, that's focused, the health-funded side is focused on about a 10% increase, which is what we've been running. Our self-funded healthcare plan funds our CSCA and others. Our teacher unit and our administrative unit have separate benefit trusts that they run. So we have fixed prices that are negotiated with them that we pay per member per month. On the self-funded side, we pay the actual claims. So we set a budget and then, react as the actual claims come in.
How often, I mean, I understand you're self-funded, but you still go through a group, correct? Like Independent Health or Univera, something?
Independent Health manages the payment of the claims,
So
both
how-
pharmacy and medical.
When's the last time that was actually bid out?
We haven't bid that out since I've been here, and this is completing my 4th year.
Because that's concerning. I mean, is the 10% increase more or less from the self-funded, or is that from the,
It's the claims, the actual claims.
so?
The administrative fees, and I can get you a breakout as we move forward in the budget process. The administrative fees are not increasing at a rapid rate. We have pretty favorable contract there. But these are the actual claims, actual dollars paid to doctors and hospitals and things like that.
I understand. I used to be on the board for the town, so I understand for the healthcare, so I understand the whole self-funded and all that. It's just to see a 10% increase anticipated this year, plus, I mean, going back to 24, we're at 15, we're just keep going up these large numbers. It's time, I think we have to evaluate the healthcare and come up with a different plan, because to sustain this, I mean, we're going to be over 20 million probably by 27.
The bulk of the increase in costs are high-cost claimants with very serious medical conditions.
What's our stop loss cap at?
175, I think, right now.
So I mean, that's a good number, so I mean, after 175.
But we have over 20 high-cost claimants at the current time. They obviously...
I'm just saying, I think there's other avenues we can explore to either save money or to at least mitigate such a large increase each year. And I think it's time that we really take action on that, because a 10% increase is just way too much.
Okay. Well, we can look at the contracts as we roll through the process. And like we have two main contracts. Independent Health runs the pharmacy, and obviously their drug arm, pharmacy benefits groups runs the pharmacy. Independent Health runs the medical side.
And it's pretty standard, like that rate, unfortunately, you're seeing across the board.
We've been around 2 to 3% a year in the town.
So, and that might just be that you're fortunate without the high-cost claimants. So
Well,
there's nothing you
we're
can
part
do
of a
with-
group that combines, I mean, I think there's, I want to say close 15 to 20 different groups that are part of it, so we buy.
Are you part of
A
that?
captive? Are
Is
you a
that
captive?
LMHF?
Yep.
Okay, so LMHF is a consortium of many different municipal partners. It's called the Labor Management Healthcare Fund. I've done a lot of research on it and done work trying to drive other districts to that fund. One of the issues with the fund is they won't take somebody like West Seneca Schools unless everybody in West Seneca Schools is a part of it. And we don't have that luxury with our administrative group and our teacher group. It's a great fund and a great opportunity, because in essence you share claim risk with everybody else who's part of the fund. And the biggest part of that fund is actually the County of Erie. So their claims in the hundreds of millions of dollars give you a space to sort of, if you're having a bad year, you're buffered by having a greater claim base, and then your premiums get adjusted on that. There's a similar model in Chautauqua County that the Chautauqua County Healthcare Fund for school districts, where all the school districts in Chautauqua County belong to it, and we shared claim risk there. We set a rate based upon what is needed by the consortium. And so if you have a bad year, you have high-cost claimants, you're buffered by somebody else who's having a good year and not doing that. So it's a good way to mitigate risk. I totally agree. I wish we could be part of LMHF.
Has the conversation ever been made with WISA or the teachers?
That would be an item to be negotiated. I know that WISTA has a very lucrative healthcare benefit trust that they run, and I'm not aware where they would be interested, but I'd be sure to I can certainly have that conversation.
Yeah, just, even if it doesn't go that avenue, there's definitely something that needs to be done about the health insurance. It's just, it's a $20 million cost essentially right now. I mean, it's $18 million, but I mean, you might as well call it 20, which is a large portion of the budget. So if we were talking $20,000, I'd be like, okay, it's nothing, but I mean, with the gradual increase, and it's not going to slow down, something needs to be done before it just tips the scale.
Yeah, I don't know how much you're going to find, though, like if you went to a commercial or something else, the cost of the drugs are out of control right now. So it's a bigger conversation, and every district's dealing with it, every company's dealing with it. Being in a self-funded world, I can tell you it's stripped down, doing the best we can. So I really
But
do
if
think
we're
you
not
have to-
looking, then we're not, I mean, if we're not trying to make a change, then we're doing a disservice to
Yeah, we'll throw
everybody.
the RFPs out there, that's.
Well, I mean, I'm going to object a little bit there. We do look at our formulary every year. We do look at our coverages every year. But we are.
Well, you just said you haven't bid out since you've got it here.
We
so
haven't
I mean,
outbid with our consultants. All they do is process the claims, but we do meet with them and adjust what drugs are covered, what drugs are first tier, access to drugs, like some of the more popular drugs that were originated for diabetes and now are being used for weight loss. We don't cover that, but we have drawn lines and try to adhere to that. All that ends up nibbling around the edges when you have people with serious medical conditions. And it's unfortunate, but the population we do serve is an older population and probably averaging in age somewhere around 55.
So are we in essence, I know we self-fund, but we're also the decision makers on what we pay for? Meaning like,
We help in what rules are established.
Okay.
So I don't sit and review a bill from Wadsworth and decide whether we
Okay.
pay 28 or 32,000 on it.
got it. Okay. And is there a reason, so you said Wista they handle their own thing? And
WISTA and WISA both have,
is there a reason our
benefit
other
trusts.
group doesn't have that? Is it against rules or something, or do they
no
not want
rules.
to?
No rules.
Okay. I just didn't
No,
know.
the benefit trust concept is not that widespread. In my previous districts, that was not the case. I mean, everybody, at Frontier, everybody buys from the same pot, the same self-funded plan. And that plan runs about, last time I looked, it was about $13 or $14 million a year. But I take your case, that is an expense that's increasing, and we now have a main consultant, Lowry Benefit Services, who's the same consultant and LMHF, so we get the same level of input. So the total benefit change is about 5.62, so a total salary and benefits of $118 million, up just under 4%. Again, that doesn't include any retirements that'll be received and the impact of those, and it also doesn't include any new positions that are being requested, and those are being gathered now and reviewed.
Well, for the workers' compensation, is that just what goes into like an account line, or is that insurance that we put, what is the workers' compensation?
It's $1 million set aside for claims. We're self-funded there as well. You can see back in 2023, we spent $673,000 in workers' comp. The 2024 number is less than $1 million. I think it was closer to $800,000. Where we have a good budget year, we will work to try to negotiate out, pay out claims that have been on the books for a long time, and try to, work down the number of open claims. We have a third-party provider that was bid out before I got here that monitors the claims and reports on it to us.
Are we self-funded to a limit, or is it fully self-funded?
No, we have an excess workers' comp coverage there as well. Anything else on that slide? Oops, wrong one. So I know this is tough to read, and there's certainly a lot of information. I really just put it up there these are our object code expense categories that are not related to salaries and benefits. And I just highlighted a few lines that have been moving in recent years, some more dramatically than others. I'll focus on the top line, the purchase of buses. Again, that's done with our bus reserve. How that's actually done in the future, given the dramatic increases in costs for electric buses and the uncertain financing and aid terms on electric buses, we're going to have to consider alternatives, but for right now, we still have the bus reserve able to fund our annual requirements. Contract transportation, last year we went through a rebid of a 5-year-long transportation contract. So it took a dramatic jump as we reset the rate. That rate's in effect going forward for 5 years. It escalates at cost of living allowance. It does give us the ability to lease additional buses for first student, and we do have an agreement with the union that's capped, but we do have an agreement to lease additional buses if required. So we're in those discussions now with our transportation unit as to how to best serve the needs of the district. You had a question?
Yeah, just, and again, I hate to even have to ask this, but that mandate that I don't care for from the state about the bus situation, that's going to apply to the private school bus companies also, correct?
Yes, I believe it applies to everybody.
Okay, so costs will,
Across the count.
So are they running more routes, or, like, what is that dramatic increase of $1 million?
That's the same question.
We had the ability to increase 10 routes in the contract with our CSEA. We increased 5 routes and the price increase, which that's what you see there.
Now, is that because we are understaffed at bus drivers, or is that just the need we
Well,
have?
there's 2 things. One, finding our own drivers is a challenge, and maintaining that is a challenge. 2, the number of routes we have to run, given the transportation to charter schools, non-public schools, and other special ed tuition-based schools, it's gone like a giant spider web. So we've needed the capacity. That's why we increased first student. If we could do it all in-house and have, 80-plus drivers, I would imagine that would be our choice.
And then is this based on like a day-to-day thing that we're getting charged by them? Because I can tell you from both high schools, which it inevitably has to trickle down to the middle and elementary, they're combining buses nearly every day. I don't know if it's West Seneca buses or for student routes that they're doing this for, but if this is for student routes, are they then going to refund us a certain amount of money for doing it?
Both West Seneca routes and first student routes end up being combined. They have what I would say similar challenges with driver retention than everybody else. They're not immune to it.
It is my understanding that if they do combine routes, that we do get a
Like a
we
credit.
get a refund of sort. Am I mistaken in that? I mean, that's my
I
experience.
wouldn't call it a refund. We're negotiating with them right now as to how the relationship works going forward.
Okay.
It's always been a contract that's been divided into 10 months and paid. They're also doing other runs for us, so if they have to combine like a high school run for a drive home or an AM or PM, they may also at another time be running a special ed run or
So
other
it
runs
balances
for
out.
us. Right now, we think it balances out. We've had a meeting with them recently to try to drive the relationship to a higher level. Having Jennifer Jones on board has certainly been a help in that regard. She's taken a very forward-leaning posture and working more closely with the contractor. We're looking for a greater deal of access to them operationally so we can have better communication with our parents, because she's the one who has to deal with all that input coming in from the parents. So, any dollars we spend on contract transportation along with the rest of our transportation is aided heavily by the state, and that's something that we certainly count on when we negotiate these agreements.
That was actually going to be my next question. Is that like 71% that,
I think it's a little higher now.
Okay.
but I'll know the final percentage once the detail on the governor's
is
budget
that,
comes
is that based on dollars spent, or is that based on mileage driven?
out. Dollars spent.
Cool. 2 other quick questions about the busing costs. I know at one point a few years back, we were looking into some of these special ed routes not being buses used, but like transportation vehicles that didn't require CDL licenses. Was that ever, like, look, is that just not a feasible thing, or was I making that up?
Well, we only have 1 or 2 vehicles right now that we would do that with. One is a long-distance run to Rochester. There's been issues on that run, and we bid that out. You've actually approved the contract tonight with Western New York Bus, another bus company, to to do that run for us.
Right. That's better than us sending a bus to Rochester.
Right, and we have, transportation has purchased a greater number of 30-passenger buses to try to accommodate the low attendance runs, if you will. Remember, on some of our special aid runs, we also have to accommodate aides, and in some cases, a nurse. So it's car settings or SUV settings might not be appropriate for that type of run. If you go farther down the list, the first blue line, the second blue line, sorry, 471 is tuition. That's tuition paid for out-of-district special education students. Since the pandemic, there's been a dramatic increase. We've talked about that here at this table in previous years' budget sessions. It's affected both staffing and the tuition line. It's certainly an item that Dr. Kruger's up to speed on very, very quickly, and will be part of our staffing discussions going forward before we come to you with a recommendation. I can tell you that this trend that you see there will continue in the 2026 budget year.
Do you have, you might not know this, but do you know approximately how many students that is that are?
I do not have an FTE number. We can get that for you. Dr. Fowler would have that immediately.
The total number of students that are out of district incurring that tuition expense, you can make a note of that.
The next line is,
It would be interesting to see that by grade level.
I'd also be curious, tuition's different than charter schools, so none of this tuition is unmandated, meaning like we're not paying for tuition for someone to go to St. Joe's.
No.
Or this is tuition for like,
special ed.
yeah, special ed period, like period. Charter schools are separate.
Falk School,
Yeah.
autism services, those type of schools. Baker Victory. The next line down, payment to charter schools. It's another line that's been accelerating. You'll see at our next presentation, it's accelerating again. I can tell you that during the current budget year, we are already over the budget and pulling resources from other lines to fund it. Enrollment in charters is increasing.
That's another thing I'd be curious about is how many, and where's the, charter schools are K through 12, some of
Yes.
them, some of them are.
Yes.
Like, I'd be curious what we have where, but then if we have kids go to charter schools and we have to pay for it, and they come back, do we pay still for the whole year, or is it
Now, you pay in
prorated?
several increments over the course of the
Okay.
year, and we only pay to what the equivalent FTE was. So if they were there for 5 out of 10 months, we pay half.
Okay,
And that charter schools generally don't send kids back until right before state testing.
After Bed's Day.
yeah, got it.
You made just for clarity, the beds numbers. I'm a nurse, I'm thinking beds. As
Yeah.
in how many people can you fit in there? Is that what that means, how many students?
Basic educational data, statistics. So it's an annual count that comes in October, and it's kind of your measurement for the year that everything else is based on. So your beds data is the number of students. It's kind of a snapshot in
It's
time.
not like heads and beds, it is.
No.
It's butts in the
Yeah.
seats
It
on a
is.
specific
It's the number
day.
of kids.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not that, it's not desks,
I
it's,
just wanted to make sure. I wanted
It's
to
a
make sure I
specific
was-
day in October.
Yes.
We're required to report our enrollment.
Okay.
And the enrollment of West Seneca kids in non-public schools, the enrollment in charters, the enrollment of special ed, charter, tuition kids, both at BOCES, and it's a large, complicated reporting that we do in the district. But it sets a lot of things. It's used across the board to try to level playing fields, even though it's a snapshot on a given day.
Everything that's really enrollment-based, even some of our state aid dollar amounts that are based on a per pupil amount, a lot of things are based on that magical number that we capture in October and report to the state.
It's one day out of the whole year.
It is, and the logic behind it is that at the beginning of the school year, there is a lot of transition and influx, kids who register late and might not be there on the first day of school, and so they don't do it intentionally in the first few weeks of school, so that hopefully those things settle down. But, different schools have different transient rates throughout the year, and your number is never constant all year long. So they do pick a date in October, and that day is the day.
Thank you. Sorry.
If there's anything else on this page, the only thing I'd say is that next month you'll see the 2026 column. And I believe we're going to give you the fully requested 2026 column, so it has some wishes in it. And then, we'll work forward from there to do what we got to do to come to a budget.
Have we seen, and I don't know again what categories these fall under. I know there was a major shift in printing. Are our budget numbers reflecting that, where we're not printing certain things, like a lot more of, like is it a positive or negative, or how are we looking on that with our budget?
I think it was difficult to close the print shop.
I don't need that answer now, I don't know if it's something,
But it was difficult to close the print shop, but it had an impact on people.
yeah.
But from a financial perspective, a couple of things. One, I think our print costs have gone down. The amount of stuff that we print, it now gets a higher level of scrutiny. And so we've pulled back on stuff that we print and the volume that we print it, because now it's not viewed as being a quote-unquote free resource, like, oh, just send it to the print shop. Now, we have one person manning a digital print shop downstairs who does a heck of a job, but we have, I would say, greater controls.
I was curious about, like, also we didn't go out and buy a whole, like, ton of printers, and then now they're making textbooks out of the smaller printers in their buildings, or?
No.
Okay, just curious.
No.
Right?
No, we bought two larger production machines to replace the old ink 4-color and 2-color presses. So Beth in the print shop does a fantastic job managing it, and we've been wrestling it to the proper end.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
I know more about printing now than I ever wanted to know. Yep, wrong way again. BOCES services, last year we held BOCES services flat. The goal this year is also to hold them flat. The BOCES budget kicks off Friday with a long meeting with our BOCES representative, and we'll begin to construct it. It spans everything from our data system, software, legal advice and services, policy services, special education, tuition for CTE programs. We have 200 kids that leave our high schools every day and go to BOCES for half-day programs. So it's a far-ranging budget, covers much territory, so I end up being the guy who sort of shuffles the cards. Special ed gets their cards, the curriculum gets those cards, the high school gets their cards. So, but the goal is to try to hold it flat so it doesn't contribute to any budget shortfalls.
I know over the years we've increased, and, I appreciate the effort the district and the board and everyone put into increasing the amount of kids going to BOCES. Do we find a lot of non-continuation of going to BOCES with kids? Is there a huge, because I know that we do pay for the year because they have the spot. Is there 200 kids starting on Beds Day? Are we getting a lot?
You don't pay for the whole year. If a student drops, you charge twice, once in the fall, once in the spring. So
I thought that would count as two, yeah. Okay, so I'm just curious, are we having 200-ish kids fully participating in BOCES, or is it?
The 200 kids is actually a last year's number, so they actually charge us, it's kind of like a 1 year removed.
Okay.
So it went up. I just got the letter today. For 200. Last year we paid for 171.
Okay.
So it's a pretty significant increase in terms of dollars in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and this could be more of a question for talking about things in the future. I mean, this is what our,
Kate Welker is our, CTE person, and I sent her all the data today, so it's, during the process, we can review with you if you'd like, what programs they're in,
yeah, I'd be
what
curious.
schools they come from, how many people who were in program
'Cause I know-
1 took on program 2 their senior year. We try not to let kids jump around because it's a junior, senior thing. If you start small animal science 1, you should do small animal science 2 in order to complete whatever it is you were trying to get accomplished, so. Great program, they do great things.
Yeah. Cool.
I also handed out at each of your stations a publication that came from BOCES. Talks about West Seneca's relationship with BOCES and how much we do together. That came from BOCES, so I just wanted you to have it. Debt service, we worked with our financial advisor, as Dr. Kruger mentioned, for debt service for this year. You'll see that number again the next time we meet. It reflects the additional borrowings to complete the $75 million 2018 project and some borrowings to support the $23 million 2023 project. And then we're responsible for like 20% of special ed costs for certain programs. That's what you see at the bottom in terms of transfers. And then the transfer to the capital fund, that's the $100,000 capital outlay project. That also generates state aid at about $75,000 a year. So, we spend 100, we get 75 back, so the net cost is 25,000. A pictorial representation of what our budget is. You can see that between salaries and benefits, we're in the 75 to 80% range. Debt service 5%, transportation 5%, other 10%. But, that's a historical number, 75 to 80, that's where we always are. Any questions there? We have budget advisory, I think, this coming Monday, so we'll review some charts with those folks, and we look forward to February 11th, where we'll talk about the governor's proposal for state aid, how we budget state aid here, a first draft of the tax cap calculation. Again, we don't have all the numbers, they won't be available till the middle of February, but we'll take our first run at it, and then all those expense codes that you saw today, you'll see the 2026 column, based on requests, not based on final. So we begin to feel like where we are, revenues versus appropriations, and what needs to be done. Any other questions? I'm sure the boss has lots to say, but she's not capable of it all.
Thank you. Will and I were supposed to co-present, so thank you, Will, for taking this.
Everyone good? We can move on to number 4, Board of Education discussion. And I am looking at the long list of items. Does anyone have anything they would like to add to that long list of items? If there's none?
I just want to remind everyone that I will be in Albany on the 11th, so I'll need to be virtual.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, because the 12th is the advocacy day on Capitol Hill, so I will.
Have you decided you are going to do virtual, or will you work with Nicole to make that happen?
Yeah, she's aware. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I just wanted to.
I just know we're talking about travel and stuff, like you're going to be...
Yeah, I'll leave early enough, so I'll be, yeah.
Nice. Anything else? You were? Nope. Marla? Excellent. Okay, we will move on to the next thing. Number 5, anticipated executive session. May I have a motion to enter into executive session for discussion related to the employment history of a particular person?
I'll make a motion to go into executive.
Second.
Second, and no, we don't do discussion. All in favor? Oh, do we do discussion? Do I ask if there's discussion? Okay, but I'm not. Okay, fine. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That's a 7-0. Okay, we'll be going into executive and then adjourning out, but we will not be more than likely conducting any public business, so thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone at home, or in your car, or wherever you're watching. Have a great evening.